Hello there. Hi. Welcome to the PitchGrid, the podcast that brings you news, insight, and analysis from both sides of the footballing world, the NFL and the EFL Championship. We thank you so much for tuning in once again. We have got a episode chock full of content. So without further ado, let's head gridside and talk about the NFL. So we had a lot of retirements this week, including Frank Ragnow, Dave Andrews, and Dustin Colquitt. All three great players. Let's start with Andrews. He was a Georgia Bulldog from like 2011 to 2014. He was an undrafted free agent in 2015, signed with New England in that year, and became a two-time champion, being the Falcons in Super Bowl 51 and the Rams in Super Bowl 53. He was an all 2010s Patriots team nominee, and he played 124 games in his career. Honestly, that's pretty incredible. He replaced the legend that was Brian Stork at the time, a very underrated center for the Patriots during the Belichick era as well. And Belichick seemed to have found his replacement in Andrews. Truly an underdog story because, like, you go undrafted, right? And these are the stories you love to see. Going undrafted after being an SEC powerhouse in Georgia during the Aaron Murray years, and then you go on, you play 124 games, don't miss a ton, and you win 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's the dream if you're any player and what you aspire to be. The Patriots did release him earlier this last month, and he retired only days afterwards. Is he an all-time great Patriot? I would have to say so. Like, you're part of a dynastic era. That was the early 2010s for the Patriots. This is probably one of the stacked eras for Patriots football that probably will never be seen again. Most of these players are going to have incredible stats to look back on. And I mean, just imagine when, like, we've already seen Julian Edelman retire, right? We now have Dave Andrews retiring. When we see, like, Brady and all of them get nominated, well, Brady's already been in the Patriots Ring of Honor. Um, there's so many good ones here that just you don't think about them, and yet they're there. And we're starting to see the new crop from the Lens dynasty come in, and it's pretty cool to see, especially these kind of stories where you're not expected to do much as an undrafted free agent, right? When you come into the league, you're expected to just work your tail off and do well. And Andrews did exactly that. He sat on the bench, was patient. When Stork got injured, Andrews replaced him, and he never let go of that spot after that. That's the stuff of movies like you would see in a typical, like, Disney movie for sports and something like that. If I had to say, like, he's right up there in terms of the all-time great Patriots offensive linemen. But definitely him and Stork are probably the best centers that you can think of, especially in modern memory, of Patriots centers. Really, I don't think you can go back much farther than that and say there's better. I mean, like, the Patriots, they before the 2000s weren't that great, and they had the one Super Bowl appearance in '85 against the Bears, but they got crushed. And that team wasn't really that great. It just happened to get there. And then, of course, the Patriots team that went to the Super Bowl against the Packers in the '90s, but they also got bulldozed by that great Packers team with Brett Favre. Looking at Patriots history, it's very interesting just to see, like, how little much is known about the franchise until we get to the Belichick Brady era, and then there's all these great players that are gonna be coming down through the woodworks. And Andrews is the next one. He's probably I think he is actually in June. I believe they're gonna have a retirement ceremony for him at Gillette. And I would not be shocked if he's not long for the Ring of Honor as well, considering how instrumental he was to the great Patriots teams of those. The 28-3, like, he was part of 28-3. My word, like, think about that. That's something you're gonna always remember if you're a player in that game, especially if you're a Patriot. Falcon, you probably never want to think about that ever again, but great game to be part of, one of the classic comebacks. Hopefully he does well in retirement. Hopefully he's able to find his calling after football, and that just has the best of luck, because it's not always easy for football players to be able to move on from the game, or coaches for that matter. Frank Ragnow retired, like the Lions center. He was 29 years old, and like he had been dealing with a lot of injuries, and it was shocking at first, But, like, when you think about all the injuries and all the stuff he had been through the last few years, it makes a lot more sense why he would do it. It just seems really stunning that a lot of these players are kind of going the retire early route lately. He was a longtime captain, a four-time Pro Bowler, three-time second-team All-Pro, and he was very decorated at Arkansas, where he played college football as well. When he got drafted, he was part of a very dismal group of Lions teams that just weren't good at all. I think he was there during the Caldwell years when they made a playoffs a couple of times under Caldwell. And then after left, of course, they went back to being bad. But still, there was a couple of good years there. But then Dan Campbell came in, really turned the Lions around, and really has helped build the culture of the Lions to being contenders for the Super Bowl consistently. And it's very similar. I was thinking about this. It's very similar to Andrew Luck and his career trajectory, right? He wasn't a first overall pick, but, the injuries mounted up and kept mounting up for both of them. And eventually they just called it quits when they were at what would be considered typically the peak of their careers. And that's not easy to do, I'm sure. There's a lot that went into the decision. Very hard to make those kind of calls. Like, going back to like Megatron, another Lion, for example, right? Calvin Johnson, he retired seemingly out of nowhere, but he had a lot of injuries and a lot of stuff like that too going on. So you can kind of see probably where Ragnow kind of got a pattern for it because I believe him and Johnson were both teammates for a bit. And I would not be shocked if, looking back on it, Ragnar was just like, I don't want to be on the sidelines for injuries a lot. And he goes back, thinks about Calvin Johnson and what he did, and he's like, yeah, it's time to step away. And this seemingly is starting to become a pattern with young players retiring and player safety becoming more and more of a reason for retirement. Derek Carr came out the other day and was saying that he wanted to not be on the sidelines with being injured, and that's totally understandable. Like, you don't want to just sit there. You're a competitive person. If you're in this game, you are competitive and you want to play, and it hurts to not be out there with your brothers. So I can totally see why Ragnar would do it, especially if he feels like he can't play at the best possible level he can play. And if he feels like he can't do that, that's totally fair. That's up to him. It's his call. It's his career. He had a very solid career. One of the best Lions centers probably ever. He is definitely an all-time great Lion. Definitely will be up in the rafters of Ford Field sooner rather than later, I would assume. Wow, it's just crazy to think about because now this has a lot of implications for the Lions, right? Like, do the Lions take a step back? Does their offensive line, because he was such a cornerstone for that line, will they be able to replicate the kind of production offensive line wise that they had when Ragnow was, coaching and mentoring and helping grow all these offensive talent? Like, I'm sure he was right there with Penei Sewell the whole time, just helping him. I'm not going to say that they're going to take a massive step back, right? We all can see that this Lions team has a ton of talent, has a ton of potential, and they have the coaching to do it. They had a lot of coordinator turnover, right? But still, they're right there, and they are definitely going to be contenders, I think, still this year. It just may look a bit different. It may look a bit more not as clean or polished as it has the last couple of years under Ben Johnson, but I still think they have the talent, they have the quarterback, everything like that to make sure that they are still in contention for that one seed and giving the Eagles a run for their money. Another retirement that was a bit more coming, the Chiefs signed Dustin Colquitt to a one-day contract, and he officially retired as a Chief, as it feels almost right that he should because he played there for 15 years. He was the longest tenured player in Chiefs history, by the way. Him and Derek Johnson were there for so many years during the Chiefs' lean years. He holds multiple, and I mean multiple, records that are Chiefs records and now. Like, okay, he has the most games played at 238, most punts at 1,124, the most punting yards at 50,393, most punts inside the 20 at 483, the longest punt in Chiefs history at 81 yards, and that was in 2007, and the highest career punt average in Chiefs history at 44.3 yards per punt. That is incredible stuff. Just think about that. Feels almost impossible to break because Of course, Colquitt was there for so long in Kansas City, and then he went to the Browns. He was a two-time Pro Bowler and a champ in the 2019 year when they won their first ring under Mahomes. He was one of the more underrated punters, honestly, in the league, and right behind, in my opinion, Johnny Hekker for the greatest punter of his era, because Johnny Hekker is one in a million punters. Like, you're never going to find that guy. I think that guy still holds the longest punt, one of the longest punts in NFL history. Though 81 yards is kind of hard to beat, let's be honest, but that's crazy that Hekker is right up there, I think. And it just goes to show how underrated special teams are in a lot of ways. Like I said, Colquitt suffered through so many lean seasons in Kansas City, and he definitely deserved the Super Bowl ring that he got in 2019. And he will definitely be in the Chiefs Ring of Honor, and I would think he'd be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he is that good. He holds so many records, and he is right there in terms of NFL records too. He did carry on an incredible family legacy. I don't think this is talked about enough. The Colquitts have one of the more interesting family legacies in the NFL. Uh, Dad, Colquitt, he was a punter in Pittsburgh. He won a couple of rings during the Steelers dynasties. And then Brother Britton, he also won a Super Bowl in 2015 when the Broncos beat the Panthers. And so you have a combined 4 Super Bowl rings in the Colquitt family. Like, how crazy is that? Like, a bunch of punters. You have 4 Super Bowl rings and multiple Pro Bowlers, and of course, they all went to Tennessee. That was another legacy thing for this Colquitt family. All Tennessee Volunteers, so definitely all following very similar paths, inspired by their dad, Dustin Britton, where I'm sure crazy to think about how deep the legacy is there. It's generations now, Colquitt's, and it would be really cool to see if like Dustin or Britton's kids ever got into the league. Like, the genetics in those legs must be something special, I tell you what. So, congratulations to Ragnow and Andrews and Colquitt, all for excellent careers, giving their all for each of their teams. I believe Colquitt's the only one that did not stay with one team his entire career, because Andrews and Ragnow both stayed with the Patriots and Lions, respectively. And Colquitt went to the Browns, I believe, for a couple of years after he left the Chiefs 3 or 4 years ago. And now he's retired a Chief officially because he always loved KC. And now he officially becomes a Chief for life. So congratulations to all those guys for excellent careers, and hopefully wishing them nothing but the best in their retirement. In other news, Gabe Davis, the former Bill and Jaguar, he is scheduled to meet with the Steelers a couple of days ago. We kind of wondered if this was happening when Davis was cut by Jacksonville. I believe it was back in May or April. The thing with Davis is, right, so he could be a solid wide receiver too. He had that great game against the Chiefs in the divisional round in the 13th-second game. He caught fire. I think he had 4 touchdowns and I think like 7 touchdowns total in those playoffs. It was insane how incredibly clutch him and Josh Allen were in those playoffs. It just wasn't meant to be when the Chiefs, of course, won that game in the 13 seconds. The thing with Davis is he can get on fire, right? Like in those playoffs, but then he just goes stone cold and can drop so many passes, and his hands are just bricks sometimes. Like, it feels almost like him and Kadarius Toney could be similar, except Toney never catches the ball, and Gabe Davis sometimes does. This is very much talked about and reported that the Steelers are looking for someone to fill the wide receiver 2 role in Pittsburgh. Obviously, they traded George Pickens to Dallas, and obviously there were a lot of character concerns with Pickens, and that's widely believed why he was traded, because of those concerns and the effect it had on the Steelers' locker room. Gabe Davis is an interesting option. Like we talked about, I think, last week, Chris Olave has been rumored to go to the Steelers. So, interesting choices on both ends. Obviously, it's a rather depleted market in the wide receiver area right now. But, I mean, when Davis is on it, he can be on it, and he's almost unstoppable if he is. Now, that's a huge if, right? Like, that's if he does. Like, Jacksonville, he was awful. Everyone thought he could be a great signing right along Calvin Ridley, I believe, is when he came in with 2, and then they just never took off. And the Jaguars cut him this year, and now he's looking for a new team. And it feels crazy too, because Davis, after that divisional round playoff games against the Chiefs, was considered one of the more underrated wide receiver 2s in the league, and he's gone from that to being very much a commodity pickup by someone who desperately needs a wide receiver 2. It's unfortunate for Davis. It's going to be a very, very interesting decision if the Steelers pick him up because, they need it, but do they need someone that can't catch the ball? That's definitely something to keep an eye on. Speaking of Jacksonville, they signed a tight end Trent Irwin and defensive end Dewan Smoot, both former Bengals. Also, the Niners did put Trent Taylor on IR, and they waived offensive lineman Nicholas Petit-Frere. So those are some interesting little waiver wire moves that we saw this week. Irwin and Smoot. Irwin's an intriguing option, right? Because in Cincinnati, he's not really needed anymore. I believe they have Eric Alt, I believe it is, that really came out of nowhere last year and looked really solid. And then, of course, you have Mike Gesicki, who is the undisputed tight end one there. They gave him a contract. So Irwin kind of felt expendable and he was let go. So that could be a good pickup for the Jaguars, especially since they no longer have Evan Ingram, who went to the Broncos. And then, of course, they always could use more edge rush there in Jacksonville. So definitely giving it a slight upgrade to the defensive line and the pass rush, backing up Josh Allen and he has a new last name that I can't remember right now, but definitely something interesting to keep an eye on there in Jacksonville as they try to upgrade the defense and bolster a core around Trevor Lawrence. Meanwhile, Trent Taylor has kind of been on and off IR for the Niners for a while, and Petit-Frere just never got off the ground running in his career either, so it kind of makes sense why they would waive him. We talked about this last week as well. The Steelers and Dolphins were talking about a trade for Jonnu Smith. And I was saying how it didn't make sense, right? For both teams. Like, for the Steelers, you really don't need an extra tight end. You already have Freiermuth and you had Parham. And the Dolphins, they really don't need to give up a starting tight end because they don't really have any depth at that position. Well, now we kind of see why the Steelers have reopened trade talks with Miami over Jonnu Smith. And that is because Parham tore his Achilles in OTAs. So the number 2 tight end for Pittsburgh is out for the season because it's an Achilles. So now from a Steelers perspective, it makes a ton more sense why they would want to get Jonnu Smith. Like I said in last episode, Smith is a great tight end number 2 option if you need a tight end number 2. Freiermuth is a very solid number 1. So I could definitely see why this would be a good move by the Steelers now. It makes a ton more sense now than it did earlier. But I still have a lot of questions about why Miami would want to trade Smith. Obviously, nothing is done yet. There's no actually done deal to trade him. But still, it is interesting that if the Dolphins did go through with this, they have almost literally no tight ends. I think it's a couple smaller known tight ends, but not really anything in the depth chart for the tight end position. And Jonnu Smith he was a reliable option for the Dolphins last year. And now it feels like they're trying to give up these pieces when they really need to get a playoff run together. Considering, Mike McDaniel, I still think is very much on the hot seat for the Dolphins, and he really needs to win this year to keep his job, and he needs to win a playoff game or two, really, to make sure he stays in Miami long term. Just an interesting trade rumor here that has kind of sprung up once again, considering that Parham tore his Achilles. It could blow up sooner rather than later, especially with training camp right around the corner next month. Are Aaron Donald and Jared Verse beefing? So apparently Jared Verse, the defending defensive rookie of the year and also a LA Ram, he challenged the Super Bowl champion, considered one of the best defensive tackles, if not in recent memory, or all-time defensive tackles. And Jared Verse claimed that Donald was, quote, he's not ready for it in terms of working out with him because he challenged Donald to work out with him. We all know Aaron Donald's workout routine has been legendary over the years. Insane lifting. It reminds you almost of James Harrison on steroids almost. And so Aaron Donald, the other day, he responded with a video saying that he just wants to talk. He just wants to talk. And he was at the old man retirement workout room and he wants Verse to come and work out with him. He was just doing a bit of cardio. Donald was running on the treadmill and sweating and doing, his usual workout. You could see behind him like all the weights and all of that. Why are we trying? I don't know if this is actual serious beef or not. This could totally just be some fun between the two and some competitive energy, but still, why are we trying to poke the bear with Aaron Donald of all people? Like, this is a guy that is competitive energy, and his workout and his passion for working out has been. I mean, the guy's shredded. Aaron Donald, I'm pretty sure, is still rather shredded, and you're trying to challenge what is considered an all-time great defensive tackle to a workout challenge or whatever? Like, what is going on? I mean, it could totally just be some banter between the two and some like competitive energy and trying to re-up each other every time and all that, which is, I mean, that's cool, but like still, if it's beef, like it's the most random beef of all time, considering like Jared Verse, yes, he's good. He is the defending defensive rookie of the year, but he's still got a long way to go to catch Aaron Donald in terms of production, in terms of sacks, in terms of rings even. So I don't know if Verse has much ground to stand on if this is an actual beef. It was funny to see this exchange go live on social media. So I don't know what in the world's going on there in LA, but definitely it feels like those defensive men are trying to one up each other or do some kind of beef. It's just entertaining to watch. We always love some light entertainment beef that isn't real serious. It's just working out, right? Like it's nothing deep. But still, it's fun to see those kind of beefs, and it brings some entertainment to the game as well in the off season, particularly. We had an interesting little segment come out with Saquon Barkley. He was saying that if he was to retire, no one would probably notice or understand why if he was to retire because he wouldn't want people to know. He just would do it randomly and would be in the next few years. I thought that was so interesting because right now Barkley's at the peak of his game. He was in the MVP discussion last year, won a Super Bowl, got that huge contract with the Eagles. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Frank Ragnow, right? Like this seems more and more that players are wanting to retire earlier. And let's just say that the Eagles win another Super Bowl, right? They go and win another one this year. Does Saquon retire after that? I don't know. Like, I don't think he's going to retire this year, right? I think he's pretty committed to at least staying this year with the Eagles. But let's just say they go and win another ring, and he's got 2 Super Bowls to his name. He has another insane stat line for the season. Does he retire then? That's a good possibility. I wouldn't be shocked if like he goes gets a Super Bowl ring, maybe wins Super Bowl MVP, and then just rides off into the sunset like 3 days later, right? And just says, I'm retiring, even though he's had like these 2 incredible seasons and has won 2 Super Bowls and he's now won a Super Bowl MVP. That feels like the most Saquon thing to do now that we know that he would prefer that way. And I feel like that players are starting to more and more want that. They don't want all the big press conferences we've seen in the past for retirements. They just want to do it then and get it over with. And that feels like such an interesting trend in that direction for player retirements. Because, right, we didn't have a huge press conference for Andrews well, we did have Andrews, but not Ragnow and not Colquitt. It just feels like there's a trend going in the opposite direction of less formal and more sudden, more abrupt, just because it's something they finally decided to do. And I'm sure they're in communication, right, with their teams and the franchises and the owners, the coaches, all that. They're not keeping them in the dark for sure, but still, they're trying to keep the public in dark for the most part, which I understand. Like, it's your private life. You don't want to get in the way of all that. It's just so fascinating to think about. So, could we see Saquon retire? Would that mean the end of the Eagles? I don't think it's either of those, but it could definitely be. I know a lot of Eagles fans are incredibly grateful that Saquon came to the team and won them another Super Bowl, won them some more hardware, and brought glory to the city of Philadelphia once again. It was just something very interesting to see that segment come out as well because it links kind of with all the other stuff that we've had going on this week with the retirements. J.K. Dobbins was headed to Denver last night, according to reports. He went and had dinner with the Broncos front office and ownership. And I mean, the Broncos do need a starting running back, right? They did draft R.J. Harvey out of UCF, one of the more underrated running backs in the Big 12. But, more depth isn't that bad in football. And Dobbins is an okay replacement. I mean, when he's healthy, He can be one of the better, more athletic, cutting running backs in this league. However, his injury concerns are very concerning because he missed so much of last season with injuries, with different kinds of injuries too, and I'm sure that's why the Chargers cut him. And I mean, he's not officially signing with the Broncos, right? He just met with them, but still, it was. I don't know if I'm the Broncos. Do I sign J.K. Dobbins? I don't know if I do. I feel like you've got a good thing going. You've got R.J. Harvey. I don't know. To me, it feels like something you just kind of want to avoid, especially if you're banking on J.K. Dobbins being the starting running back and maybe he's just a mentor running back for R.J. Harvey. And Dobbins is running back too. But if you're bringing Dobbins in, surely that means you're wanting to make him RB1. So I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. I don't know. To me, it just feels like a bit of a stretch, and the Broncos really need to do it. I mean, again, like I said, depth is always good, but still, it feels like a bit of a stretch considering how injury prone he is and how he's not been as amazing at his cuts and his change of direction like he was when he came out of college. Another bit of content, the Madden cover did come out. Madden26 came out with the Saquon Barkley hurdle being. It's not the exact picture from the game that he did the backwards hurdle in, but it's him doing the same type of hurdle. Is the Madden curse real? Or is this just another NFL tradition that kind of has just gone blown up lately? I do feel like it is weirdly specific how a lot of these injuries do happen to, or bad luck seems to happen to the teams that has the guy on the Madden cover. Like Christian McCaffrey last year had a horrible year, tons of injuries and setbacks, and we had AB that year. He went on the Madden cover the year afterwards. He went off and just had a season for the ages, really, in terms of diva mode, and it's just insane. Like the if you go look up the Madden curse, like it feels real, but at the same time, it's probably not. It's fun to talk about because of how a lot of these do seem like weirdly specific coincidences that happen with the cover athlete for Madden. Congratulations to Saquon for getting the cover, well deserved. He was head and shoulders one of the best players in the NFL last season, and he definitely deserved every bit of those accolades. He probably should have won MVP, let's be honest, but Josh Allen did, and I mean, Allen also deserved it too. So, lots of different angles you can come at this from, but definitely Saquon deserves the cover, deserves the recognition for all of that. Hopefully, there's more success for him to come because this feels like just the beginning of a incredible part of his career. So last week we ranked head coaches on the episode, and now I want to rank top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. Like, who are my top 10, and why would I put these at 10 through 1? And what are the criteria? We're going to go based off of records, of resume, and also we're going to go based off of talent and such like that. So let's start at number 10. I have Jane Daniels. Daniels feels like a great meteoric rise quarterback. He took the league by storm last year. He did win Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, I believe, and rightfully so. He was incredible, had a great season statistically, and wowed everyone with his athleticism and strength and leadership, guiding the Commanders to an NFC Championship game. He is just a rookie, so I would love to see him do more. He just feels like one of the top 10 quarterbacks because of how well he did. Now, granted, I'd love to see more of that. It just feels like there's not, when you get to this point, and making this list, I found this out, it feels like there's not a ton of quarterbacks that really stand out except for the top 8 maybe, and to me, Daniels just feels like one of the better quarterbacks in this league right now. I could totally be wrong, but right now, coming into this year, I do think that Daniels is number 10 because of his athleticism, his strength, his leadership, and if he continues to build on that, he could absolutely jump up this list. At number 9, I have Brock Purdy, and this is going to be quite the debate because we've talked about on previous episodes about the contract and how much that impacts the Niners. He does need to win a Super Bowl, I think, in this new contract era for him. However, he has taken a team to a Super Bowl. He has gone to 2 NFC Championship games. He has gone from being Mr. Irrelevant to one of the quarterbacks in the league, and now he's the 7th highest paid quarterback per annum. And didn't have a great year last year, but I do think that if he can rebound this year, and maybe take them to the playoffs or further. Maybe if he wins a Super Bowl, he's probably going to jump up this list as well. But for right now, I feel like Purdy's a safe number 9 bet because he's not only just accurate, he's really good at making sure he doesn't make bad decisions. He's a good pocket passer. He's able to get to his weapons, and he takes full advantage of those weapons as well. So, in my opinion, one of the top 9 quarterbacks in this league. Matthew Stafford is next, the LA Rams and former Lions quarterback. He's done so well for himself since he came to LA. He won them a Super Bowl, and he's just overall been very solid, very consistent overall. His Lions years, he also was very consistent. He was on some bad teams there and had some bad years, but still overall very solid team leader material as well. Always knew how to carry a team on his back, even when hurt. I still remember the mic'd up when he got injured against the Browns as a Lion. I don't think anyone's ever going to forget that if you're an NFL fan. If you're not, go check it out. It's pretty inspiring to see him not be able to play with one hand and still win them the game. Stafford, to me, has just shot up this list because of how well he's played recently and been able to guide a team like the Rams from being bleh under Goff to actually winning a Super Bowl in his first year with the Rams and looking rather good. His stats have been solid as well. He also has a good record when it comes to LA, and he feels like one of the top quarterbacks in this league. He has the talent, and he definitely is a very savvy veteran as well. How long he's going to play, I don't know, but it does feel like he is right up there in terms of the top 10 quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, for me, is at number 7. He has done so well since he came from Carolina and LA to Tampa. Since he got to Tampa, he's had over 70% completion percentage every year in his time there under Dave Canales and Liam Cohen. And now he's going to have to transition once again to a new coordinator because Cohen left for Jacksonville, and of course the year before that, Canales went to Carolina to coach. So now it's on Baker a lot now to keep showing that he is right there at the top of this chart for quarterbacks, and he's become more accurate. He's got a great deep ball. He makes a lot of great decisions. I mean, his completion percentage speaks for itself. Over 40 touchdowns and was one of the league leaders in passing yards. Like, that's pretty solid considering most people thought he was a bust for most of his career. So I definitely think he's right up there, but I still think he has a lot to prove. If he gets a Super Bowl before he retires, he definitely will go up this list a bit further. But for now, I'm going to put him at number 7. Number 6 is Jared Goff, the Lions quarterback. He's gone from being number 1 overall pick and a quarterback that lost a very ugly Super Bowl to the Patriots to getting to Detroit and making them a powerhouse for the first time in a long time and looking very good at the process, having a very high completion percentage, a lot of touchdowns, very few turnovers, and he just wins. Goff has been winning since he got to Detroit, and it feels very satisfying for him. I'm sure the redemption tour keeps going, and I'm sure he wants to win a Super Bowl before he retires. I believe he came out in the 2016 draft, and, he was the first overall pick. So it's been about 9 years since he got drafted, maybe even almost 10. And it just feels like he's just getting into the prime of his career, even though his age is really up there. So it'll be very interesting to see how much longer he's going to be in the league. I do think if he wins a Super Bowl, he's probably going to ride off into the sunset, and rightfully so. He deserves to do that after all he's done for the city of Detroit. I just feel like right now he's right there in the middle of the pack for me. He's still a very good quarterback. I just don't think he's better than the ones above him. Jalen Hurts is number 5 for me. This might get some flack. He did just win a Super Bowl, and he's got a lot of rushing touchdowns, especially. But his stats overall are very good, very solid, and his completion percentage is also pretty good. Of course, a lot of his rushing touchdowns are probably tush-push related, but that's not a bad thing. I think that Hurts is so good. He has so much potential still to come as an Eagle, but he still just has he has some slight things to work on, and I think that just puts him slightly under the other quarterbacks who just feel like the top echelon right now of quarterbacks. Even if he has won a Super Bowl, I feel like I would love to see him take the next step and keep making the steps to improve and make his game even better. I have Joe Burrow at number 4. He had an MVP season last year, one of the league leaders in passing yards, touchdowns. I mean, if he had made the playoffs, he was an MVP finalist, so it definitely is possible. I do think he could have won it if he made the playoffs. He just didn't because of a defense that just was awful. And now they're hoping to rebuild and retool there in Cincinnati. I just My one thing with Burrow is his injury health, and it feels nitpicky for sure because he's done so well when he has been healthy. But still, injury inability is so important to your development and important in helping build the chemistry with your receivers that you have. Now, obviously, he has a lot of chemistry with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But after that, it feels like a very depleted receiving room now, and the Bengals really need to step up and win Joe Burrow a title because he has done nothing but do great things for that franchise. He's gotten them to a Super Bowl. He's gotten them to 2 AFC Championship games, and he's done so much for that franchise. They really don't deserve the kind of success he's brought them, considering how they're treating Trey Hendrickson right now. But still, a very good, very solid quarterback and one of the best in this league. I have Lamar Jackson at number 3. He is a 2-time MVP. He has a lot of rushing touchdowns, and he's so electric, so fast, so quick and twitchy. I love it. He is one of the more fun quarterbacks to watch in this league. I really love watching him and how he plays, and his style is so dazzling and mesmerizing as well. My one concern with Lamar is he sometimes in big games can freeze up, and he doesn't always consistently perform in those big games. And that's kind of why I feel like he doesn't go up as high as the top 2. I think we all know who the top 2 quarterbacks are here, but still, Lamar is so good, and he's got the stats to back him up. I don't think we can say he's a running quarterback. He's a running back anymore. I truly think the last couple of years he has shown that his passing is so good and that he has improved that part of his game so well. And I'm so happy for him to be proving the doubters wrong and showing that he is a good quarterback in his own right. And he's not just a copycat, and he's not just a running back and all that. And it's not just the system or whatever. It is truly like you go back to the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago, right, against the Chiefs. That felt like one of the games where he just froze up and he just couldn't make a throw to save his life. And the Chiefs defense also was suffocating and getting to him and making sure that the Ravens couldn't run like they wanted to. But still, it's crazy to think about how close Lamar has gotten, but yet he's still so far from a Super Bowl ring. Number 2, I have Josh Allen. He won his first MVP last season. He is always very good at both rushing and passing the ball, one of the more accurate quarterbacks. He also is very strong, very athletic, and yeah, he's taken so much major steps since he started out in his career, and he's made himself even better and better every year, it seems. And now that he doesn't really have a ton of receiver talent, I mean, you could argue this last year as well, but especially now that he has like almost zero great receivers, how does he translate that into another great season that could help maybe Buffalo get to the Super Bowl for the first time since the early 90s? And I feel like he just needs to keep improving situational awareness and pocket awareness because sometimes that kind of comes and goes in spurts for Allen. And I feel like he just needs to be calm. He needs to be focused. And if he can do that, he's going to do amazing things still for the Bills. And he has turned that franchise and the fan base around with how well he has played and where he is going, it seems, with his career. So very happy for him. I do think he is one of the top 2 quarterbacks. Number 1 for me, Patrick Mahomes. I do feel like his Super Bowls, he has 3 Super Bowls. He has 2 MVPs. He has gone to AFC Championship game at worst in his career. He has not gone anywhere less than that. And I think that is a standard that is very hard to beat in this league. And it's a consistency standard that right now is definitely makes him the top quarterback currently in the league. And I don't think there's any way you can deny that. He may have had a couple down years statistically, but I think that is more because he's adapted to a different kind of offense and he's not trying to be as flashy as he needs to be. He just needs to take care of the ball Now, granted, his interceptions were up last year, but I do think that was kind of a fluke. I think he's gotten much better at trying to be situationally aware. Obviously, the game in this last Super Bowl wasn't great, but I do think overall you can't deny how great he has been, and he is definitely the face of this sport for right now, besides maybe Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley right now. I don't know how you can't say that this guy isn't already close to being in the Hall of Fame, if not already in the Hall of Fame, with how well he has played. So those are my top 10 quarterbacks. Let me know what you think in the comments. It was so fun making this list. Another thing that I was thinking about when making this list, who do I think are overrated and underrated quarterbacks right now in this league? I would definitely say that Tua is underrated. His stats show you that he's actually a rather good quarterback, and he's rather accurate as well, and he's right there, I think. He just needs to win some playoff games and get better at staying on the field and not getting his head injured all the time. If he can do that, I think he will skyrocket up these rankings. But for now, it just feels like he's kind of underrated because of how often he gets hurt, and often the narrative around him is the concussions and all of that. I do feel like, though, if he can keep himself safe and healthy on the field, I feel like he will definitely be able to shoot up quarterback rankings if he plays well. One overrated quarterback to me is CJ Stroud. I do feel like the first year set a lot of high expectations for him, and this last year, he definitely felt like he underperformed those, even though they got him Stephon Diggs. It just felt like a very underwhelming season by him, and I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate his first season because it's such a high standard, and not many quarterbacks can actually do that kind of stuff consistently. So I do think that he could be good, but right now I do think he's kind of overrated. And it's something to watch out for. I think it could be that the Texans maybe take another step back. Who knows? It's going to be fascinating to see where his career goes because at this point, it's at such a crossroads that he could be one of two ways. He could either be really good or he could be really bad. My biggest candidate to jump up the quarterback rankings would probably be Sam Darnold. Last year, he had such a great season with the Vikings, but of course that was his first really good season ever in the league. If he's able to do that again and maybe win a playoff game or two in Seattle with the talent he has, this could be a fun season to remember for Seahawks fans. Also, breaking news on the podcast live. We now have official word that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh my word. He is right now flying to Pittsburgh, according to Ari Myrov and Tom Pelissero. So crank up that Renegade Steelers fans because you're going to have Aaron Rodgers as a starting quarterback. So there you go. There's the answer to all the questions we've had right now. So with Aaron Rodgers being the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, what do you think, Steelers fans? Do you think this is a good move? This is going to be, wow, this is going to be fascinating to see how this goes because this is something that Art Rooney has tried to work on and make sure this deal gets over the line. He said they weren't going to wait for long. Well, now they don't have to wait any longer because he is officially coming to Pittsburgh. Boy, oh boy, this could be something fascinating. The soap opera is officially in Steel City. So he's going to be able to throw to DK Metcalf. This might be also where they were trying to get Gabe Davis in, get a wide receiver 2 in. Fine. The contract parameters have been placed for months. Apparently, that he'll play for $20 million, and the sides just need to finalize the contract deal. Once he signs, he will be an official Steeler come the 2025 season, and just in time for training camp, no less. So hold on to your seats, boys. This is gonna be a bumpy ride. Wow. And yeah, there goes the Will Howard stock watch. I was really banging the drum, y'all, for Will Howard to be the starting quarterback. I really think that you want him to be the future, but now, at least for this year, it's gone because Aaron Rodgers is an official Steeler. So cannot wait to cover that one. This is going to be a lot of fun. Also, let's look at the top 5 running back receiver duos in the league right now. This was a fun one to make as well. It's interesting, looking through this and thinking about that. Like, shout out Three Guys, Six Balls podcast for suggesting this topic. And if you ever want a topic to be suggested, always drop a comment whenever we drop a post about, what we want you guys to think. We want the audience to be involved in our chat, and we always want them to bring up some topics. You all brought up some cool topics that we've been able to get on the show, and I'm really excited for some of these things. Top 5 running back receiver duos. It's crazy because many of these great teams, they usually have a great running back or a great receiver. They usually don't have both. So this was rather hard to rank because it felt like, there's one that was really good and the other was just so underwhelming. But I think I've got a pretty solid list here. Number 5, I have Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers as the number 5, just because Derrick Henry is one of the best running backs in this league. Zay Flowers has so much potential and is definitely a wide receiver one for the Ravens, but he definitely needs to take a step up to further solidify that. He needs to keep producing and maybe up those touchdowns a bit in order for him to be considered a solid wide receiver one in this league. Number 4, I had Kyron Williams and Devontae Adams from the Rams. I believe that Kyron Williams is one of the more underrated running backs in this league. He's so solid. He's so productive in so many ways. Devontae Adams, if he goes back to the Raiders years, he could be such a great pickup by the Rams and can make this receiving core really, really go. Number 3, I have Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. I do think that is, you have the best receiver in the league by far, Jettas. And then, of course, Aaron Jones is one of the more, he's another one of those underrated running backs that is just solid. He is very athletic, but also a bruiser running back. He showed last year how very good he is and how solid and productive he can be. So definitely a great tandem to have in your backfield and on the wideouts if you're JJ McCarthy. Number 2 is Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown for the Eagles. Obviously, you have the Madden cover athlete who had a record-breaking season for the Eagles and won the Super Bowl. And of course, AJ Brown, one of the more underrated wide receiver ones in this league, with how well he produces and consistency that he produces at. My top one, though, and this feels like the best running back receiving duo because they're both just really solid, is Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I feel like they are the best running back receiver duo because both are just solid, and you can't say that one is better than the other. They're both really good. I mean, obviously, St. Brown is one of the best receivers in this league, but you always feel like that Gibbs and Montgomery are one of the best running back duos, if not the best running back duo in this league. They are a great 1-2 punch, and it always has given teams fits when they have to play the Lions. So I definitely think that they're the best combo because they're both very solid and they work together rather well. And it makes the play action very deadly when you have that kind of running back tandem in your backfield, and it makes Jared Goff's job so much easier. And so with that, we head pitch side now. Let's talk about all these manager hires in the league. So we had 3 manager moves this week. Ryan Mason was hired by West Brom as of earlier this week. The former Tottenham Hotspur Youth Academy player. He bounced around in lower leagues on loan spells to like Doncaster Rovers and Millwall and Hull City even for a bit when he played. And then in his coaching career, he coached at Tottenham. He was the youth academy manager for a while. And then when Jose Mourinho was sacked, he was the interim there. He actually became the youngest manager in Premier League history when he became manager there at Hotspur. He lost the EFL Cup final to Manchester City in his second ever game, I believe it was, in that span. And then when Antonio Conte came in, he became a very trusted coach for Antonio Conte, who even made him the first team coach for Tottenham Hotspur. And then when Conte left on mutual agreement, Mason became the interim manager once again for the North London club. So he definitely has a lot of experience. He has experience coaching in the Premier League, no less. So this feels like almost an inspired move to go pick up Ryan Mason by the Baggies. And if he turns out right and he has the ability to do it, like in the championship especially, like it feels like a very solid move that could actually do a lot of good for West Brom. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that works out at the Hawthorns. What the project's going to look like, we don't know really. The transfer window is just opened really, and West Brom hasn't made a ton of moves yet, but this could be fun to see where he thinks the project could go. Norwich City also officially hired Liam Manning, the local kid who, of course, was coaching at Bristol City and got them to the playoffs last year. It's a good hire if he keeps coaching like he did at Bristol City. He goes to his local club and gets to see if he can't turn around the fortunes there. My only question is, will this be enough to entice Boreas Signs and Josh Sargent to stay? Because those are 2 players that have been rumored to be leaving Norwich City this year. Sargent to a big club, either in MLS or to the Premier League, and signs has been rumored to go to Spain or to Turkey. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now with the top two scorers for the Canaries. Is Liam Manning going to be enough to stay for those two? We'll have to see. But if they lose those two, that could be a huge rebuilding project in the works for the Canaries and Liam Manning. The other manager move that we had was Michael Carrick was sacked by Middlesbrough yesterday. He had a great first year with the T-Siders, got them to fourth place, and had that great year with Chuba Akpom, who led the championship in scoring and became the championship comeback player of the year. However, the last couple of years, just poor form, inconsistency, and a lot of other factors played into how he finished 8th and 10th respectively in the last two seasons, and that factored very much into why Boro let him go. He is very good developing talent. Like we saw the likes of Emmanuel Loth take off, why he's now in Atlanta, for goodness sake. We saw Morgan Rogers, who is now one of the top players of the Premier League, be developed very well by Michael Carrick as well. And then, of course, his weaknesses are he very rarely was willing to change his tactics unless absolutely necessary. It really didn't feel like he was going to really change his tactics unless he absolutely needed to. And when it did, it felt like it was a little too late. And you need a kind of flexibility from a coach to be able to change your tactics and be able to tweak what your style is. You can't always just stay in one tactic because that's never going to just work all the time unless you're Pep Guardiola. And Michael Carrick, while he's a great player, a very underrated player in his time, definitely needs to figure out something. I'm sure he's going to take this into this next part of his managerial career and use this to learn a lot about himself. So good luck to him. Hopefully he does well in his whatever his next step is as a manager. Some of the betting favorites right now for to replace him. Actually, the top three bets to replace Carrick are Rob Edwards at 13 to 8 odds, and then Steve Cooper, and then Danny Roll. So those are the top three right now. Tom Cleverley is number 5. I would not be mad with Rob Edwards or Danny Roll or Tom Cleverley. All of those three actually sound like rather sneakily good options to replace him. Honestly, they're all very good tactically and very sound. And Tom Cleverley, I think, was unfairly sacked by Watford last year. So this could be very interesting. There are reports right now that Middlesbrough really want Danny Roll, but his buyout clause could be an issue. That definitely would be a concern because Middlesbrough do not have the means to be able to buy out that kind of clause, I'm sure. But if I were to pick, I would probably say Rob Edwards or Danny Roll would probably be my two options. I wouldn't be mad with Steve Cooper, but I don't think right now he's the guy that Boro needs to help take a very talented squad and make them officially in contention for a playoff spot because they're right there on the edge. I don't think they need a rebuild. They just need a couple of solid pieces, especially at the back, to make them a very good championship team. They have the striking pieces. They just need the defensive and the right back to make them a very complete team. And I think they could be very dangerous in the championship next season. So going on to our soccer basics segment, let's talk about what a table is. So a table is another word for standings in soccer. Let's use a championship as an example. The championship has 24 teams every year. In a table, usually, especially if you're talking English football or German football or most leagues, you're going to have what's called a pyramid. So you're going to have different tiers. Right now, let's using the championship as an example. They are the second tier. So the Premier League is at the pinnacle or the very top of the pyramid, and then the championship is right below that. So what happens every year? 3 teams will go down from the Premier League to the championship, and 3 teams from the championship will go down to League One. So every year in a table, you have the point system. Now, everyone here, especially in the States, doesn't know how the point system works, right? They don't understand why a draw could be actually productive. Well, it's because points actually mean something. So every win that you get in a soccer season gets you 3 points. A draw actually gets you 1 point, and a loss gets you 0. So a draw is important because it helps you actually get a point, which helps increase your place in the standings. Obviously you want to win and you get 3 points. But a draw also helps in a lot of ways as well. It can be hurtful in some ways, depending on certain scenarios, but overall, it can help you in a lot of ways as well and help you increase your points total, which helps you go up the standings in a division. And that's the case with all soccer standings, right? Because That's how soccer works. You just work on points instead of wins, losses, or draws. It's not a record, it's points. And so when you understand it that way, it makes a lot more sense why draws are much more common or actually greeted with a lot more relief because you actually aren't losing and you actually gain something out of a match. So hopefully that it kind of makes sense. It's not very complicated, but it feels like that once you think about it. And for it's it for another episode of the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Listening on Spotify or Apple, a rating or follow goes a very long way. And we'll be back soon with more chaos, commentary, and coverage from the championship and the NFL. Until then, stay sharp, y'all.